The Bengals have a right tackle on the roster. Trent Brown signs a one-year deal.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast as the Cincinnati Bengals finally have a new right tackle on the roster. I'm Jake Lisco. He's James Rapine. We're the Locked On Bengals podcast. We've been doing this for, 4 years now? Is that about it? Coming up on 4 years now, James and I on this podcast. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. If you're new to the show, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up if you like what we're doing here, covering the Bengals every day, and join the Locked On Bengals community. The Cincinnati Bengals have officially signed Trent Brown. He's been introduced to the media. It's a one-year deal. We don't have terms beyond that, but it is the deal that we were expecting when we recorded like an hour and a half ago. The Bengals nicely waited until after we published an episode to make this deal official quickly. Thought this might go into tonight, but no. Sounds like it was very smooth. Trent Brown visited in person to confirm the things they talked about on the phone, and the deal got done.
This is the type of visit that you want them all to go this way. They didn't even get to the Ruby steak. He got in last night and everything went well this morning, and they're like, hey, man, let's roll, man. We want you to block for Joe Burrow. And I think he will start. We still don't fully know that element, but he's certainly starting as of now. And it was a must get, Jake. Getting someone that's a proven offensive tackle to play right tackle this year, they had to do it because we don't know what the draft is going to bring. We don't know who they're going to draft. And if that player is going to be good, let's be honest here. We've talked a lot about their track record of drafting offensive linemen. Hopefully they nail it in round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever position they take. But adding someone that could start week 1, start all year if you need him to, was a must. And Trent Brown's the best guy available for what they want to do.
And he will start
passing offense.
Yeah, and he will start and be a good pass protector as long as he's healthy, as long as he doesn't lose a competition to anyone the Bengals could bring in or not bring in. He does give them some flexibility in the draft, but a one-year deal doesn't impact your draft plans. If the Bengals' best player at 18 is a tackle, they'll still pick the tackle. There could be a camp competition, but if you need Trent Brown to start, he's got a track record of being pretty good at it as long as he's on the field. And that's going to be the challenge for them with Trent Brown. And the challenge for Trent Brown is it's a challenge for every NFL player every year is taking care of your body, staying healthy, and staying on the football field.
And one of the things that I think is interesting about him is the fact that he's so comfortable switching sides. He cross-trains all the time, wants to play left and right tackle, wants to show the league that he can do that. He says it benefits his body doing that. And that is a huge benefit for the Bengals because if you do take a tackle early in the draft, well, you don't have to bank on them playing left tackle. Trent Brown could go do that if Orlando Brown Jr. gets nicked up. And so it's kind of like Jonah last year where you had a guy who's comfortable at left tackle playing right tackle. It gives you a little bit more flexibility there. But to your point, of course, it doesn't impact the draft at all. I do think that Trent Brown will start. I do think he's going to be their best option, barring health. And part of it's just this offense, like this drop back offense. It's exactly what he's built for, where he can pass protect and be on an island and do all of those things that we talked about in the other show that we did before he signed. Go listen to it because there's a ton there too, or watch it if you're on YouTube. There's a ton on Orlando there too, but he's comfortable in those situations. Or Trent, excuse me. Man, here we go. It begins because there's 3 Browns. Yeah. Orlando Brown Jr., Trent Brown blocking for Chase Brown, touchdown. That's what the Bengals are hoping for today. So we'll see if it happens. But I do think he's a really good fit in this offense and what they want to do. And we know what they want to do. And he's done that part, that pass protection part at a very high level. Not that he's a bad run blocker. I don't want to say that. But the Bengals clearly are a passing team. and he's the best pass blocker they could have gotten that's on the market right now.
He is, and it's just a question of whether or not or how much he's able to play for them. And it's a
Mhm.
1-year deal. So we're back to the rent to tackle options. If you're looking at the Bengals' recent right tackle solutions, it's been 1-year deal, 3-year deal that ends up being a 1-year deal for Lyle Collins, Riley Reef being that 1-year deal, and then Jonah Williams in the last year of his deal. So this is the fourth right tackle they've had in the last 4 years. It's their fourth plan at right tackle. And there are some similarities between Lyle Collins and Trent Brown, but the difference is there's nothing degenerative that we know about with Trent Brown. He's just had some injuries here and there that have caused him to miss time, but there's no, the back might never be the same. The hip might never be the same that there was with LC. So you hope that he can stay healthy. And we talked about earlier the connection with Ted, or maybe I was talking to Joe, the connection with Ted Karras, the connection between Sheldon Rankins and Trey Hendrickson and Von Bell on that side of the ball. The Bengals are bringing in some guys that are familiar with some other players in the organization, and it does sound like the testimonial from Ted Karras was helpful in selling Trent Brown that this was a good landing spot for.
I think that's a good point. He mentioned the family atmosphere. He mentioned culture and in the feel of how things were today. And man, I think Trent Brown playing for Bill Belichick for all those years, I think it took its toll, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like, all right, let's go play for Zach. And we talked about the culture element and how it could impact a guy like Trent Brown, who has had some injuries, clearly wants to show the league that he can play at a high level. And he's going to get the chance to show that in this scheme, in this offense. Up next, you'll hear from Trent Brown. We'll continue to react as well to the Bengals' newest offensive lineman. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time for your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers.
Last note on culture and Trent Brown. You talked about the atmosphere that exists in Bill Belichick's New England Patriots versus the atmosphere that exists with Zach Taylor, Cincinnati Bengals, and the brotherhood that you often hear players talk about in the locker room. That could make a really big difference for a guy like Trent Brown. Not everybody is going to respond well to the Patriot way. We've seen that. He did play well in New England, don't get me wrong, but some guys don't respond well to that kind of motivation. And Zach Taylor, certainly with a new age motivational approach compared to a guy like Bill Belichick, that could be something that is much needed for Trent Brown at this point in his career, especially as he's trying to put the finishing touches really on a career, whether it's, 5 or 7 years left, whatever he has left. He's in the later half of his career now, most likely at this point. And so if the leadership style and cultural fit is better for him in Cincinnati, and they can take care of his body a little bit better and get him to game week, that could go a really long way for him. And it's not necessarily the most tackle-friendly offense. We've talked about that. A lot of just straight pass protection, but he's done a lot of it too. And we talked about that this morning in our previous show that we also published today. Trent Brown on an island is something he's comfortable with and something you asked him about on Tuesday.
One thing that New England had you do a lot is go up against these pass rushers in drop back situations one-on-one. The Bengals like to throw the ball a lot. I'm sure you'll be in some one-on-one situations like you have been against Myles Garrett, TJ Watt. How comfortable are you in those situations because you do it more than any other tackle in the league?
I'm very comfortable doing that. That's what I do best. I think that's why I'm here. And like you said, you wouldn't find another tackle in the league or in the game of football today that does that better than me. I have a unique set of skills in being able to play both sides that way. And credit to God and my parents for that.
A
I love
unique
the
set of
smile.
skills.
Yeah, I love the smile at the end there. And the unique set of skills is Liam Neeson in Taken. And he's going to be taking these opposing pass rushers for a ride. I mean, he's gone against Myles Garrett one-on-one plenty. He's gone against these guys. He mentioned Myles Garrett when asked about the best pass rushers he's faced. But that's what the Bengals are going to want him to do. And he's comfortable doing that. And that has to do with his size, 6'8", listed at 380, according to the Bengals official release. You're talking about a giant on the opposite side of Orlando Brown Jr., who's nearly 40 pounds lighter than Trent Brown, which is kind of wild because they're both 6'8". And so you have two towers helping protect Joe Burrow, who hadn't talked with Trent yet. I'm sure that's going to change in the near future. Hadn't talked to him. This came together so quick, Jake. I mean, he flew in late last night. He was in Cincinnati for, I would say, roughly 16 hours before signing, like give or take around 16 hours before signing on the dotted line. So clearly both sides feel like this is a really good fit.
And the assumption there is that the deal was roughly in place before the visit occurred. They had the visit, things went as they should, as we talked about earlier, and then you're able to get the signature done. And we're doing a Zoom meeting. And it's a pretty big signing to be a Zoom meeting, but hey, when you can't get reporters down there at the drop of a hat, it's nice that we have that technology so you guys can talk to them.
Well, that's proof of how quick it came together. That's exactly what it is, because of course they would have done it in person, but I'm not sure anyone in the building on that side of the building, at least, thought it was going to come together that quick. And then when you get word of that, well, then you do it how you can do it. And by the way, I would much rather have that than them say, hey, we're doing it right now. If you can't make it, you can't make it, because everyone's going to drive down and then half the people miss it. And then you don't get to ask the questions like that one, which is crucial, because what are the odds they find a pass protector like Trent Brown at 18 who's plug and play like that? I think it's unrealistic. It opens up the draft for them some. Still could absolutely take a tackle at 18. But I feel better today. The Bengals certainly got better today, adding a player like Trent Brown, who, again, can play left tackle or right tackle at the drop of a hat. He is willing to cross-trains, embraces it, and thinks that it makes him a better player training at both spots.
Really, the only downsides to this move are that he's 31 and he's had issues staying on the field. And I know I've said that a lot, and I know it's a broken record, but that's the only downside, because when he's on the field, he's good. And he fits what the Bengals have been doing in their run game in terms of being more of a power gap running team. He fits what they want to do from a passing perspective. We talked about his island percentage leading the NFL. You go watch his highlights. Brandon Thorne has a bunch of videos going back 3 years now of him being a really, really good pass protector. He was, in fact, PFF's top available tackle at a position where the Bengals needed a tackle. Last year, Orlando Brown was a PFF top free agent tackle. The Bengals signed him. He's playing left tackle for them. And this year, the top overall tackle was Tyron Smith, but we knew Tyron Smith wasn't playing right tackle. The top tackle after that, who was willing to play right tackle, was Trent Brown, followed by Mike Nwenu. So the pair of Patriots tackles there. And the Bengals, again, going to the top of the PFF tackle rankings for the second straight year, and getting a guy that should stabilize the position if he can stay on the field, and does give you perhaps some ability to feel a little bit more flexible in the first round if they were feeling pressure. But again, I don't think that a 1-year deal should be changing your draft plan significantly.
No, I don't think it does. I think it does. It opens them up to not reach necessarily to address that position. At the same time, yeah, you take the long-term approach, and you want to make sure you fortify the line in front of Burrow as much as possible. But you mentioned Onwenu. If Trent Brown is healthy, you could make the argument that he is a better fit for what the Bengals want to do. And we haven't seen the money yet, but you could certainly make that argument. Now, if he's healthy, that's a big if. Age, all of those things. There's a reason why Onwenu got the money he got. But you're talking about one game or a playoff run or going into Arrowhead or going to New Orleans to win a game, which obviously the Bengals are hoping to do next year. You're excited Trent Brown's on your roster, no doubt.
And there weren't a whole lot of other options out there. They talked to Mekhi Becton. They didn't come together with Mekhi Becton for whatever reason, whether it was money, whether it was fit, whether it was culture, whatever it is. But there weren't a whole lot of other options. And as soon as Josh Nijman signed yesterday, on Monday. It was kind of Trent Brown or bust. That's what I tweeted anyway. And the Bengals went the Trent Brown option and not the bust option. And we'll see what happens after that. The other thing, the other draft note is that if they were to draft one of these tackles that perhaps could also play guard, with speculation this week that maybe JC Latham is a guard, or maybe he could play guard. Fuanga certainly could play guard. Fatanu has been projected to guard. If they were to pick one of those kinds of guys, maybe you have some guard competition as well, and you've totally remade your offensive line. And then in the future, they maybe are a right tackle after the 1-year deal. Just another draft note that gives them the ability to upgrade multiple positions on the offensive line if they're so inclined, both in the short term and in the long term, with a potential first round pick.
Yeah, I think it opens it up for that. I think they will address the interior in the draft at some point, and whether or not that guy that they take, if it is early, can play on the inside. It depends on who they take, of course. But yeah, I think it's something they have to do. We've talked about it a ton. This doesn't change their draft history or anything like that. At the same time, it gives them, we talk about the championship window, it gives them a legitimate right tackle. Like there's no reason why Trent Brown, if healthy, can't be better than Jonah.
Yeah. And he was ranked higher than Jonah Williams on both Brandon Thorne's free agent tier list and PFF's free agent rankings.
Yeah. So there's no reason why that can't be the case. And especially in this system against those pass rushers in the North. So the Bengals, they got better today, no matter how you look at it. And that is a really, really good thing.
And what's next is the defensive trenches. Eyes back on the interior defensive line market to see if the Bengals make another move there. Once we get a feel for the money for the Trent Brown deal here and we have a look at the contract, we'll have an idea of what the Bengals are likely to continue to spend, because I think we are expecting, if you were listening last week, we thought Becton and Tart would make sense for their two final big quote unquote moves of free agency. Well, they've got the right tackle now. Maybe there's one more sizable move left, but we'll take a look at the salary cap situation once we have an idea of that can give us an idea of what to expect from the Bengals the rest of this free agency period going into the draft. But that's going to do it for this bonus episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.